Everybody smiles in the same language. A smile, let your light come shining through.
Welcome to the Celebrate Happiness Roadshow podcast. I'm Sandra M., coming to you from Santa Fe, New Mexico, the land of enchantment. I interview people from all parts of the world about what happiness means to them. What are they in love with? In each episode, we'll give you a key to happiness to include in your life. And of course, we'll play a happy tune from my live Celebrate Happiness Roadshow.
A smile doesn't cost you anything. But there's so much good.
Welcome to the second season of the Celebrate Happiness Roadshow podcast. And don't forget to catch up on any episodes from season 1 you might have missed. Today we're talking with Bonnie Bennett, co-owner with her husband Tony of the Kakawa Chocolate House in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Bonnie and Tony moved to Santa Fe, New Mexico 14 years ago to craft their next adventure, the wonders of chocolate. The Kakawa Chocolate House mission is to introduce people to the long history of chocolate through drinking elixirs and offering world-class artisan chocolates, ice cream, and baked goods locally sourced from the finest ingredients. As a chocolate sommelier, Bonnie many days is behind the counter talking chocolate with guests visiting from around the world and the globe. Her love for chocolate is infectious and engaging as she focuses on leading classes, chocolate immersions, cacao intention events, corporate adventures, and pairings with other local businesses in all their Santa Fe locations and their newer Salem, Maine location. Bonnie came to chocolate as a second career by way of the fashion industry, having a background in jewelry design and merchandising and a long, successful career in New York City. Bonnie also teaches NIA, a holistic movement practice at Body of Santa Fe and Studio NIA Santa Fe, and volunteers on the board of International Folk Art Market. In her free moments, you can find her cooking or enjoying a quiet moment with her husband and partner Tony and their 2 rescue pups, Lucy and Mackenzie. Welcome, Bonnie, to the Celebrate Happiness Roadshow podcast. I am so excited to talk with you about happiness. And why is it so important in your life?
Sandra, it's great to be here with you today. Thank you so much for inviting me. I am very happy to talk about happiness. It is one of those things that is lifeblood, I think, to many of us, certainly in my life. Happiness is important because it makes you feel good, right? It is an innate part of who we are, and I want to tap into that more, not less, right?
Yes. How do you tap into it?
My life is a combination of the business that I own with my husband and partner, which is Kakawa Chocolate House, and also as a teacher of a movement practice called NIA. So the combination of feel-good food, which of course is part of my food pyramid, and movement are 2 things that drive a lot of happiness in my life, and that I feel an honor to try to share with many more people in that respect, to help it bring happiness into their lives as well, to have something that we share a love for.
Wow, that's interesting because, food is really important. And when we talk about food, so it's nourishing. We know this. We have to have food. And most people are into now making sure that they eat their vegetables and whatever. I mean, I'm really into organics, and I have my vegetables and a certain amount of protein every day. But I do know that I ate a fair amount of chocolate, not too much. And I know that chocolate is one of your experts' specialties. Could you tell us a little bit how happiness and chocolate might go hand in hand?
Absolutely. So chocolate is one of these amazing food products. I'm not sure how much background you have on chocolate. The oldest food products that we still consume today, the same way in which it was consumed more than 5,000 years ago. So clearly somebody got something right at some point, right? So we're carrying on a wonderful tradition of that. But of course, if we look at it on a chemical level and what it is doing for us, it is literally helping to create happiness or a sense of well-being, right? So the neurotransmitters that sort of play a role in, a feeling of happiness are things like, dopamine and serotonin, those kinds of chemicals. And that is part of what you get as you're consuming cacao or chocolate. So tryptophan is an amino acid, and that actually helps our brain produce serotonin, which of course is one of those main neurotransmitters. So it's not just people say, oh, well, how does chocolate make us feel good? And it's sort of like, well, if somebody gives you a box of chocolate, that makes you feel good. But it's way beyond that. It really is on a chemical level, which is part of the reason that it's part of my food group. I have to have my chocolate every day. It is something that literally makes me feel good in many different ways. And it's wonderful to also share, to create a connection. And of course, creating a connection with people is also about creating or perpetuating a sense of well-being or happiness, if you want to call it just that, right?
Right. I am fascinated. So, okay, cacao, that's another word for chocolate, or is that like the super chocolate?
So typically in the U.S., we use the word cacao to reference what chocolate is before it becomes processed, before it turns into sort of what we know of as quote unquote chocolate. So that would be from the plant stage, as it's being harvested, those pods, and then of course the seeds, or what we sometimes call the beans we make the chocolate from. So before it has really become a drinking chocolate or an eating bar or a truffle or a caramel or made into something else, many people will refer to it as cacao, sort of the natural part, the beginning of the process before it becomes chocolate. But the words can be used sort of synonymously, if you will. We all know that means chocolate. So we can use the word.
Okay, so when we go to the Whole Foods, which is one of the places I shop, but any of these shops, when you look at a chocolate bar and it says it has 80% dark chocolate or 70%, does that mean it has a lot of serotonin in it and we should be going for the darker chocolate?
Join Sandra M. for her live performance of the Celebrate Happiness Roadshow, a toast to love and happiness in life, an uninhibited musical adventure guaranteed to awaken your happiness vibe. Celebrate with upbeat rhythms, love songs, and fun stories, some told by you in the audience. Sandra's musical guest and accompanist, Todd Lowry, sings his hopeful and happy originals. To book Sandra M. and the Celebrate Happiness Roadshow, email sandra@sandramcknight.com. Celebrate happiness with Sandra M.
Yes, so for sure the darker chocolate is always going to be a healthier choice. And it's going to have the higher concentrations of the chemicals like the tryptophan, also antioxidants, the all those sort of amino acids, those things that are going to be driving the more healthful properties, and the outcome from a level would be associated with the darker chocolate. And that percentage is always going to represent, or should represent, the percentage of cacao, the chocolate part of that. the percentage of sugar or other ingredients. So, for example, in our house blend, which is also an 80%, as you were referencing, that is 80% cacao with the 20% sugar. So anything over, say, typically 75% is where most medical doctors will say if you want to consume it and keep it in that very healthy range, it should be 75%.
So, Bonnie, I know that you're into chocolate, and a lot of people have said that it's also like a hormone. For a lot of women, take chocolate in a sort of hormonal substitute. Is that what an elixir is when they talk about elixirs?
So an elixir, which is sort of the word that we have coined to talk about our drinking chocolates, is really not necessarily like a tonic per se. We use that term because the way in which we make our drinking chocolates is a little bit more unique in that it's not like an American style hot chocolate. Most hot chocolates, if we think of that term, are usually made with a lot of milk, so a lot of dairy, and made with cocoa powder. Many of our recipes, we have 18 different ones, have roots that go all the way back to Mayan and Aztec time periods. So making those with the ground chocolate rather than just cocoa powder and a lot of dairy, it sort of underserves them, if you will, to call them a hot chocolate. So that's part of the reason that we use the term elixir. And, it's sometimes been referenced as elixir of life, right? Because it is such an ancient food product. And of course, during those time periods, particularly if you're focused on a couple thousand years ago, more like Mayan or Aztec time periods, it was used in many more medicinal kinds of ways, used for digestive issues, used in ceremonies for things like births or deaths or weddings. So it had a different kind of role within those societies than it might today. So we prefer to sort of reference what we're trying to achieve with our drink, sort of following in those traditions, as something that's a bit more than hot chocolate, if you will. So, but in terms of a hormonal replacement or something like that, that might be a very personal decision to use something that is feeding something within them, that is increasing perhaps those neurotransmitters that help them to feel better. It can reduce stress in that respect, but it not necessarily in terms of, say, a hormone replacement therapy or anything like that. I would not reference it in those terms. That would be maybe more of a personal evaluation.
Fantastic. I mean, I can't wait. I mean, as soon as we are done with our podcast, I'm going to have some chocolate. Okay. So, I wanted to ask you then, why did you decide after you left the fashion industry and jewelry design, you and Tony made this decision to go on another adventure, as you said, the wonders of chocolate? Why did you personally choose chocolate? I mean, I'm fascinated by that.
So our story is probably not atypical. We spent a lot of time working in a big corporate world. We were in a large city. We were in New York City. And just realizing after a couple decades, we were really looking for something that fed us in a different kind of way. And we moved to Santa Fe with a job that I took, a consulting job in my previous industry, as an opportunity to get us out of Manhattan. But we began to search for something that would check some different boxes for us. And what we agreed on was that it had to follow a couple rules or guidelines, that it should be something that brought people together, that our world is creating so many things, whether it be technology or primarily technology, I guess, but that sort of pull us apart in many ways, that we wanted something that would return us to a connection with people. And honestly, it was something, our other one is sort of funny, since we're talking about this, it was something that made people happy.
Yes.
So Chocolate sort of checked those boxes, although to be honest with you, I was probably not the naysayer, but the one who said, "Are you crazy? We don't know anything about chocolate. We know about fashion." So it was definitely a steep learning curve when we made that jump and made that decision. But it has been such an amazing journey over the last almost 15 years. And for me personally, as I began to study and learn more, the more I wanted to learn, and it became just really a passion and obsession almost to really want to know as much as I could and be able to share that with people, my friends, my family, and strangers that I didn't even know.
Yes, yes. And I have been to your store, both a couple of your stores, and when you walk in, you just want to have some chocolate. You just feel good, the smell, the tasting, the environment. It's so much fun. I mean, it's actually just fun to go there. And, it's an uplifting experience. So I'm thinking also about your concept of movement. It seems like food, eating, and chocolate and movement sort of go together in your world. And when you think of movement, how does that sort of, I know it's a big thing in terms of having well-beingness for yourself, but how does that sort of move into your sense of happiness? Is it just that it creates more serotonin, or what do you feel?
Join Sandra M. for her live performance of the Celebrate Happiness Roadshow, a toast to love and happiness in life, an uninhibited musical adventure guaranteed to awaken your happiness vibe. Celebrate with upbeat rhythms, love songs, and fun stories, some told by you in the audience. Sandra's musical guest and accompanist, Todd Lowry, sings his hopeful and happy originals. To book Sandra M. and the Celebrate Happiness Roadshow, email sandra@sandramcknight.com. Celebrate happiness with Sandra M.
For me, the movement practice, I came to it on a very personal level. So I am a black belt instructor in NIA, NIA, which is a dance-based practice, but it's a triad of dance arts, martial arts, and healing arts. And I came to it as a student, kind of by accident. I had been a yoga practitioner for many years and ended up in the wrong class and just fell in love. And a lot of that on a personal level was that it filled a different kind of, I don't say it maybe a void at that stage, but it was something that was missing or too small in my life, that I needed something that allowed me to express creativity, but to also create a different kind of well-being in community. It really checked a lot of boxes. So it was part of being in a community of other like-minded people, of moving my body, creating wellness in my body, but also pairing that with the opportunity to have creativity. And yes, on the technical side, if you will, it also, dance and movement do also release serotonin and dopamine and, endorphins, right? And those things are also feel-good chemicals. So having those two things unintentionally side by side in my life that have sort of defined what my life looks like now, I guess make a lot of sense on this side of it, but was unintentional on the front end of it.
Oh, you just into being feeling good, right? Which is fantastic. And I think more of us got into feel-good chemicals, as you say, without taking something like an antidepressant or something that increases your, I don't take any of these things, so I don't even know what to say, but I know people do take things to make them feel good, right? A pill of some sort, et cetera, and it, you're basically telling me that chocolate and movement are two fantastic ways of getting into a feel-good state of mind. And I just want to ask you a few other questions about happiness, because a lot of people have told me that being grateful, having loving thoughts, making other people happy, really adds to their own personal happiness. And I was wondering what you think about that.
Absolutely. A gratitude practice is part of my day-to-day life. And part of that came during a stressful time when my mother was transitioning off of this earth. And I literally created what I called a gratitude walk for myself in the morning. So when I was out walking our dogs, rather than just walking and thinking about all the challenges and difficult things that I might have to do that day, I used it as an opportunity to remind myself of all the things that I had to be grateful for. And it set my day up in a different kind of way, right? So to me, it's when we think about our lives, right, it's part of it is things that may happen to us during the day or things that are external to us. But there's an internal state of mind, right, that pairs with that. So like our relationship with other people, how we choose to react to what's happening externally. That is such a big piece of it, that it's a choice, right? So something negative could happen, and I have a choice. I can either internalize that and allow it to sort of eat me up on the inside, or react in a very sort of compulsive or negative return in that respect, or I can make a choice to let that go or walk away or choose not to engage. And that in itself can create a better sense of, or feeling of well-being, if you will, right? So that's, to me, part of that gratitude practice is also sort of how I choose to approach the things in my life. It doesn't mean that it paints, that it whitewashes things or is about wearing rose-colored glasses. It's about saying, there might be 10 things in my day that are negative, but I'm going to find the one that's a positive, and that's something to be grateful for. Or I'm going to say, yes, I acknowledge those 10 things, but I choose to look at it in this way, or however that manifests in my day that day. And every day's different, right? Every day we approach differently. It's up, it's down, happiness isn't a static state of being, right? We're not always living in happiness, even being around chocolate and moving. Of course, I have unhappy days and unhappy moments. It's not a static sense. It's down, it rises, it falls, and that's life, right? That is us moving through life, but wanting to come back to that state.
I love the concept that you just said, choose to react. You get to choose the way you want to react internally, and then that manifests itself externally, right? Okay, so I just had to have an EKG for whatever reasons, and I had it, and she said, okay, think of a happy thought. Just go to your happiness place. And it just made my EKG was perfect. Because in one thought, immediately thoughts are so powerful. And they can just turn things around in an instant. So I thought that was fascinating. And you're basically saying you can choose how you want to think. You can choose how you want to react. You can choose how you want to feel. Right?
Indeed. And I think, the power of thought is incredibly strong. I think having that exact experience is amazing, right? To go through that and to literally see on a screen. So seeing something from a technical standpoint or a medical standpoint that you can impact just with your thought is amazing, I think. But it's also, I think one of the challenges that we all live with every day is it's about, sometimes we're working, I'll put that word in quotations because sometimes I hate that word, say working or trying, right? That we're creating sort of caveats or we're constructing constraints around how we define happiness, right? So we'll say something like, well, if I lose 15 pounds, then I can have some chocolate. Or if I just make more money, I'm going to be happy. Or if I just, having that statement of if I could just, to me, it's creating this sort of false sense of these rules or guidelines or construct around whether or not we're allowed to be happy, and that sort of idea that it's because we have to achieve something or check a box in order to be happy. When, in my estimation anyway, at least for me personally, and of course happiness is a very subjective, personal way in which we define it, that is not really it should not be the case. It is about living and creating and enjoying and having a sense of joy and contentment, satisfaction. What's meaningful to you and what's meaningful to me may be very different than what's meaningful to you. And that's wonderful. Those are unique to each of us in terms of how we are constructing our own plan for happiness.
Join Sandra M. for her live performance of the Celebrate Happiness Roadshow, a toast to love and happiness in life, an uninhibited musical adventure guaranteed to awaken your happiness vibe. Celebrate with upbeat rhythms, love songs, and fun stories, some told by you in the audience. Sandra's musical guest and accompanist, Todd Lowry, sings his hopeful and happy originals. To book Sandra M. and the Celebrate Happiness Roadshow, email sandra@sandramcknight.com. Celebrate happiness with Sandra M.
Yes. When you say we are allowed to be happy if, I think that is just getting in our way. I personally feel that we are born happy. I don't think we are born unhappy. Maybe we can say we're born neutral, but I think we are trained into being unhappy. People, as you say, you have to do this, you have to do that, whatever it may be, and then you can be happy, right? That just makes a block. It's like having a roadblock in front of you all the time so that you can never feel, okay, I'm happy. Or maybe when you finally get the accomplishment, whatever it is that you have to do, right? You get to that place and you're happy for what? One day? I don't know, maybe even only just a couple of minutes. And then you're moving on to the next thing.
Exactly.
So I think we're just born, if we could just allow ourselves to be. I wake up in the morning and I go, hey, I'm still on the planet. Good for me, and then I smile. I try to smile immediately, and it just changes my whole approach. It's like, get in the moment, Sandra. You are awake. Do you realize how many people don't wake up? There are a number of people who, if you look at everybody in the world, or just like everybody in the United States, there are people who don't wake up. So, just the fact that we're here, I think, is actually a miracle. Well, that's not my own personal feeling. That's why I do the Happiness Podcast. So, but this is about you, not about me. And you've said so many wonderful, beautiful things. And you start out with the idea that feeling good is innate, you said. It's innate inside of us. It's lifeblood. And I just want to know if you have any final words to say about that for our listeners.
Oh, absolutely. I would love to chat with you even longer, Sandra, of course. But I think, there are a few things that you hit on just in your last comments there that I would like to touch on, and that is smiling. I think a smile is so powerful, and we've all seen that. I love that you smile for yourself, because that's not for anybody else. You're not helping anybody else. You're just helping yourself. But I think we've all seen the power of a smile and the recognition of sort of how that makes not only that person feel when they react and smile back to you, but how it makes you feel, right? That adding a smile can literally create happiness in another person and in yourself. And that sort of duality is quite interesting. But I would say as we end here, for me, it's too much thinking about happiness in the future, right? That we want to have a goal of happiness. And to me, happiness is not a goal, it's a state of being. So it's about finding happiness today. And whether that be in a very small way, having a sip of chocolate with a friend, treating yourself to a chocolate, moving your body, whether you are in a class or just in your kitchen, dancing to your favorite song while you're having your coffee in the morning. It's about the moments of today versus a goal in the future.
Thank you so much, Bonnie. Profound last moment. It's about the moment of the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. It was my pleasure to be with you.
Weekly Keys to Happiness number 18. Create a self-care ritual. It's easy to forget self-care in our fast-paced world. Since your body is your temple and carries your thoughts, passions, and spirit through the world, it deserves a little TLC. No matter what you enjoy, it relaxes you. Make time for it. Put it in your planner if you must, but do it.
Newsflash. Please sign up for your copy of our Keys to Happiness at sandramcknight.com. Thank you for tuning in to Season 2 of the Celebrate Happiness Roadshow podcast. And if you've enjoyed the conversation, please help spread the word by sharing with your friends and family. Before we go, I'd like to thank today's guest, Bonnie Bennett, for sharing her happiness story. And to share your happiness story on the Celebrate Happiness Roadshow podcast, send an email to sandra@sandramcknight.com.
Turn your smile on.